right, good morning, folks, and welcome to Get Outdoors with Hook Outdoors, the podcast here. We're glad that everyone could join us. We are recording this episode here at our Hook Outdoors retail location located here on Cave Run Lake, the muskie capital of the South, they say. And hopefully you can learn a little something and enjoy it today. We'll get right into the lake information. Right now, Cave Run Lake sits at 743.6 feet of elevation, which is 13.6 feet above summer pool that is normally 730 feet. Water clarity is muddy at best. It is better than it was a week ago, but now the water conditions are still pretty rough out there. There isn't anything floating as far as all that goes. Everything like that is cleared out, but the water's still pretty gnarly right now. We have an outflow right now of 4,500 CFS and an inflow of 2,050 CFS, which gives us a net of about 2,500, which is pretty good, but it's still a pretty low drop, especially if we get much rain over the next few days. Water temps are running in the mid to upper 50s. I've heard as high as 57 degree water out there. Fishing's picking up a little bit as the weather gets better and more people get out. It's going to be easier to kind of get a handle on what these fish are doing. Right now, crappie are slow right now just due to the muddy falling water, but with the temps warming up, it'll get better as things go on. We're starting to sell more live bait here, more minnows and that kind of thing. There are a few jig and grub guys out right now, but still a little bit early yet. The water's just still not in the shape it needs to be in. Catfish, not a whole lot going on here right now. Both of those are doing better down in the spillway. They do have a pretty large pool going on right now as far as the drawdown goes. But as you get further down to the end of the spillway, more toward where there's a couple little side creeks that come in, the water kindly backs up in there. It's a little bit more slack, and the fishing's a little better. The one positive is the muskie fishing has really picked up. There's a good trolling bite going on right now. They're not doing a lot of deep trolling. Most of it is a short line trolling. If you watch any of Greg Thomas's videos, it's typical of what he does most of the time. But that seems to be the deal. A lot of trolling going on around the dam, a lot of trolling going on in Scotts Creek up behind the marina, a lot of trolling going on up toward the mouth of Works Run and around the mouth of the river and Beaver Creek, Buck Creek, and in that area there. Some trolling on the flats, but seems like the bulk of it is in those places I mentioned previously. I'm going to turn it over to Evan Barker now and let him give us the lowdown on the bass fishing here, and then we're going to go in and discuss his recent, it's actually his second BFL tournament that he just fished this weekend, and just sort of discuss the aspects of that and to see where the conversation takes us today. So, Evan, let's hear what you got.
The only sound more enjoyable than the plop of your lure breaking on the surface of the water is the high-pitched squeal of your reel as you pull in your first bass of the day. To help ensure the first catch on your line is a fish, try the SB57 by Bill Lewis, the creators of Rattle Trap. The SB57 features a wide coffin-shaped bill that enables the bait to easily drive through brush, stumps, rocks, and more. Plus, its computer chip construction gives it that tight wiggle you and your next bass are looking for. The SB57 is Mark Daniels Jr.'s signature lure and is available at Hook Outdoors Tackle Shop, located on Cave Run Lake, or rattletrap.com.
Yeah, so the time periods here now, we've talked about it all winter with the water temperature warming up consistently getting warmer and getting better. We've talked about it since, it started cooling down last year. We've been waiting for it to get here, and it's finally here. The water temperature is getting into the low, mid, and even upper 50s. And, that's the time of the year when you're going to catch your biggest fish. Them pre-spawn females, they're going to fatten up, they're going to move up shallow. And, they're going to start eating, things like red crankbaits, spinner baits, things like that, flipping bushes. So, I've heard of a few guys getting out there and catching them flipping. the water's muddy, the water's high. Them fish are going to be wanting to live up in the bushes as they move shallow. So, getting up there and, roll casting maybe a chartreuse and white spinnerbait or a chartreuse spinnerbait, something like that. Or if you find the fish are more in the bushes, you can flip like a heavy jig or flip like your normal flipping bait, like a Texas rig style bait. Mm-hmm. But, it's just going to get better every single day, especially with the weather they're given, the nights in the 40s and 50s and things like that. So the water temperature isn't dropping much at all during the night, or if any, really. And then, you got temperatures, around 70 every day for about the next week.
We had 55 here last night, so you're not going to lose anything at all.
No, and I mean, having days in the 70s and even the upper 60s, or low 60s, it's going to help any little bit you can. The sun's been out. That's going to warm that shallow water up, and those fish are going to move really shallow. So the one piece of advice I can give right now is the shallower the better.
Yep.
Unless you have like a little bit of a cold front or something move through, them fish might pull out a little bit deeper. But if you think you're fishing too shallow, go even shallower. That's the one thing that I can say about spring fishing. If those fish, they'll surprise you sometimes with how shallow they get.
Sure.
But
sure.
Moving on, just got back from Dale Hollow Lake, fished my second BFL, and it was a Music City Division tournament. It's a division that I'm not really fishing for points. It was just a deal where me and my group of buddies that I travel with, we decided to go down there and fish it, just for something fun to do. Have a just see if we can make a little bit more money, and we all had pretty good tournaments. It was just kind of a spare of the moment deal. We all had good tournaments a few weeks ago down there in the Mountain Division tournament, and we got on the phone call one night and we were like, hey, there's a Music City Division on Dale Hollow next week. Do y'all want to go fish it? Mm-hmm. We all just said sure. So we all signed up, got a room together, and went down there and practiced for 2 days, and ended up having a really good tournament.
Big thing is you was able to cash a check. That's the thing.
Yeah, for sure. Anytime you can make money, that's a good deal.
Did you go with pretty much the same pattern you went to at the previous tournament?
It was really similar. I just had to make a few little adjustments. I practiced a little bit different, but it just changed. During the tournament, I kind of had to make a few adjustments from what I found in practice, and ended up landing on a few. In practice, I was catching them pretty deep. Thursday I was catching them pretty deep. It was a pretty cold. All 3 of the mornings in practice and the tournament were all under 40 degrees.
Right.
So it was still pretty cold. Those fish weren't really all the way in the backs of the creeks that I'd seen yet. So I was kind of fishing out a little bit, or a little bit in between the backs of the creeks and the mouths of the creeks, just to kind of get a feeling for what was going on. But had a really good practice. I rolled my hooks in and all that stuff in practice, so I didn't really get to catch a whole bunch of fish. But the ones that I did catch, even in practice, I still try to catch a few just so I kind of gauge the size fish that I'm fishing for. It wouldn't do me any good if I went down a bank and got 32 bites, and then I went back in the tournament and figured out they were all 12 inchers. I would say, well, I should have caught a few to realize, maybe I should leave or something like that and go look for some bigger ones. So I did catch a few. We all 3 of us that traveled together, we all caught big ones. I think in Friday, if you combined our 5 biggest fish between the 3 boats, we'd had like 26 pounds.
Dang,
or something ridiculous like that. Yeah,
that's a good day.
There was a 6.5 caught, and me and my buddy Bailey, we both caught ones around 5.5.
Yeah.
So the bigs were eating in practice, and there was a little bit of a change in the tournament. The tournament was my toughest day, but I still lucked out and caught. I didn't even have a limit. I just had 4, but I just got really fortunate and got 3 of the right ones around. Just one was barely over 4, and 2 of them were just shy of 4.
What was the water like down there? As far as was it up, or was it muddy or anything like that?
It was 4 feet below full pool, and it wasn't muddy. It had changed a lot in the 2 weeks that I wasn't there. 2 weeks ago when I was there, the whole I won't say the whole lake was muddy, but the upper end of the lake around like Star Point, Illville Creek, and all that stuff, that area of the lake was just completely blown out, almost out of the question as far as fishing. Yeah. But this time it had a really good color to it. But the fish just weren't the size of fish that I found in that area of the lake. Just weren't really what I was looking for. You know, if I focused maybe all of my time in practice there, maybe I could have gone on a little bit better bite in that area of the lake. But, you know, I spent about half of the first day of practice up there around, you know, Star Point, Obie River, Wolf River, in that area of the lake. And I got bites. They just weren't near the quality of bites that I got down on the lower end of the lake. So, you know, I mean, I caught my fish in the lower end of the lake on, you know, in really clear water. Once you got past about Sulphur Creek, which is almost a third towards maybe half of the way down the lake towards the dam, that's when the water started getting really clear. You know, where I was catching them, you know, I could see 4 or 5, even 6 feet down if I got more towards the main lake.
You won't have that here.
No, you will not. You would be lucky to see 6 inches down right here. But no, it was good. You know, I found the warmest water that I found was around 52 and a half, I think, and that was on Friday evening of practice. I found 52, and I actually caught a 5-pounder in that same pocket when I found 52-degree water. So
what colors were you mainly throwing there?
Just anything shad related. You know, I didn't really fling a jig or anything like that too much because I knew that it's better for me. I have more confidence this time of year specifically covering as much water as I can.
Right.
Because I know I know those fish are moving so much right now. You know, with the water temperature warming 2 or 3 degrees in the day, like it was down there, those fish are going to move so much because, you know, they might start out deep and, you know, setting off of a secondary point or something in the morning,
right? And
then later in the day they might move up or into the back of a pocket or something like that. So it's just better for me to not get hung up on one pattern specifically if it's fishing slow,
right?
Because I know that if I can pick up something, even like a crankbait, jerkbait, Alabama rig, whatever it be, I can pick that up and I can cover as much water as I can, and I can fish it in multiple different areas.
Right.
Whether it be on a main lake channel swing or in the back of a creek somewhere, I can fish them everywhere and still be efficient while also covering, you know, water and catching fish.
Awesome. Okay. Now, would you? Is it a little bit early to think that they're in the pre-spawn mode, or
they are for sure in the pre-spawn. They're heavy pre-spawn down there. Some those fish. Every fish that I caught down there was just obese. I mean, they were fat, full of eggs, big pre-spawn females.
Okay.
I'll show you some pictures after this,
Awesome.
but they were fat.
Okay.
And almost every one of them that I caught too they were healthy.
Well, how we'll get into where you finished. How many boats were there, and where'd you finish amongst that bunch?
There were 201 boats in the Music City tournament, which actually kind of surprised me because, you know, looking back at past, you know, tournament results and things like that from Music City, there's usually somewhere between about 130 to 160, 70.
I think people just got the itch to do something.
Right, yeah. Everybody's so been cooped up for the past year and everything like that.
Sure.
They're just wanting to get out and catch a few fish. But I was, honestly, when I was going down there, when I registered, I was like the 101st boat to register or something like that. So and that was on the, you know, at noon on the day before the tournament. So I was like, oh wow, there's not going to be but like 120 boats or something like that in it, because it was almost time for them to close registration and everything like that. And I was like, wow, there ain't going to be hardly anybody in this tournament.
And then all of a sudden, boom.
And then, you know, we got there tournament morning, and I seen that many boats, and there ended up when I was listening to the tournament director out there before takeoff, he was saying there was 201 boats, and that was one of the biggest Music City division tournaments that I've seen. But you know, I was really fortunate. Ended up 29th out of 201. Cut a pretty good check. I'm going to be able to fish, you know, take the money that I won there and put it into the next one.
Your other BFL there, you drew like two. What number did you draw? Like?
I drew in the last tournament. I was boat 218 out of 221.
What'd you draw this time?
184.
Hey, man, you're moving up.
Moving up a little bit, but I was happy about it. I was happy about it because I'm gonna be honest, I wouldn't have cut a check if I didn't have that last hour of fishing time.
Oh yeah.
That fourth fish I caught about 25 minutes before I had to be into weigh-in.
And you know, I guess that's another thing too. You know, like if you found this pattern to where, you know, you're really doing better later in the day than you are, say, like of a morning. Yeah, you'd be better off to draw one of those high numbers like that.
Right. Yeah, that was my deal because in the pre-spawn it's no secret that those fish as the water warms up during the day, that bite's going to get a little bit better. So I just kind of kept in my head all day that the bite's just going to keep on getting better and better, and those fish are going to be more active as the water temperature increases. But it was also good for me because even if I have to wait an extra 30 minutes at takeoff, because they took off, the first boat took off right at 7 o'clock, and I think I was taking off at 7:25, 7:30, somewhere in that ballpark, and I guess technically lost 25-30 minutes of fishing time in the morning. But then the first flight had to be inside the buoy at Star Point at 3 o'clock, and I didn't have to be in until 4:20.
So you gained.
So I gained
basically
an hour.
You
of
had a
fishing
net
time.
gain there, really.
Right? Yeah, I gained basically an hour of fishing time.
Okay.
And that's just something good for me. I've got really lucky on the boat draw the past 2 times, and I had really good co-anglers both times. I had a really cool guy named Roger this time. He was a 67-year-old man from around Louisville, and I mean he fished just as much and just as hard as I did all day.
Yeah.
That was really cool. It's cool. It's cool drawing those older guys because they have so much experience and time on the water. I can just a lot of times I'll just find myself fishing and I'll just be sitting there. I'll just listen to what they're saying and the stories they have because they have years of experience on me, and that's just a learning opportunity for me.
Now, you've got your deal this weekend on Lake Cumberland. Explain to me what that is and what you think is going to happen.
Yeah, this weekend it's the TBF High School State Championship, the Kentucky State Championship. It's going out of Lake Cumberland, going out of Burnside Island State Park down there, and it should be a really good tournament.
Big field.
It's always got a big field. I think Dad called and registered me and my partner while I was in the tournament on Saturday, and I think he told me when he registered there was already 240 boats in it. So I'm expecting a few more to go ahead and be in it since the registration was still open after that. So I'm expecting 250 to 280 somewhere in
blown
that
out
ballpark.
though, ain't it?
The upper end of the lake where we're taking out of it's pretty blown out. They're still just the same as Cave Run, recovering from all that rain we got a couple weeks ago. So it's gonna be muddy. It's a little bit high. I'm glad it's not as high as it could be.
Yeah.
But it's really setting up pretty good because I went down when I toured Campbellsville University on last Wednesday before the tournament. We drove over the Fishing Creek Bridge down there at Cumberland.
Yeah.
Because we took a big detour, and I went and met Chris down there at Dove Designs, and he gave me my jersey and all that stuff and talked to him for a while. So we took a little detour around Cumberland to get there. And from what I seen when I went over the bridge down there at Burnside, was the water was several feet high. It wasn't over, Cumberland's, it's got out of shape before, 20, 30 feet high, and even 2 years ago, 50 feet high. It was bad a couple years ago, but it wasn't anywhere near that. The water, I'm guessing, was probably somewhere around 8 to 10 feet high, somewhere in that ballpark. So it's still manageable, but the best thing is there wasn't so many bushes and trees in the water that it won't be impossible to move around and all that stuff and find fish shallow.
They have the capability though. They can open it up and they can pull the pants off
They
that thing.
can pull the fire out of it. Yeah,
I mean,
that's for sure.
If it was 10 foot the other day, if they get the go ahead, I mean, they could yank that 10 foot out of it pretty fast.
They could. I mean, it's a huge lake, and I mean they can still they can open up all the gates down there, and they can hammer at it. So I don't know. I'm expecting a really good tournament. I know a guy that lives down there that had 20 pounds on. Just fishing yesterday, and
you think it'd be a rig, jerk bait, crankbait?
It'll really be
Ned rig.
I hope it's not a Ned rig. I mean, I like finesse fishing, but I'm in a power fishing mood right now. It's the pre-spawn, so I'm in the mood to throw a spinnerbait, and crankbait, and do all that stuff. But
what's the water temp there, you reckon?
It'll be similar to Dale Hollow in a way because they're they
cooler than here. You think?
It'll be a little bit cooler just because it's a bigger lake. It'll be. After this week, it'll probably be around 55 is what I'm guessing.
That's wild. It stays warmer than this one does through the winter time, but yet it takes it a little bit longer to warm up.
It gradually warms up a lot slower.
It's the size of it.
It warms up and cools down so much slower and a more gradual pace than Cave Run. But it's going to be a tournament to where you could run down the lake and find the clearer water and go catch them on something like a jerk bait or an A-rig or, you know, a rock crawler,
Right.
swim bait, under something like that. You could go do that. But then at the upper end of the lake where it's all blown out, you're just about gonna have to throw something like a spinner bait or a chatter bait or something like that makes a lot of noise, moves a lot of water, something they can see a whole lot better. But there's going to be 2 or 3 dominant patterns. There always is. There's going to be that A-rig jerk bait and all that stuff bite, and then there's going to be the spinner bait bite. The spinner bait, it's Cumberland's really famous in the spring for having just a ridiculous spinner bait bite.
Yeah.
So that's I'm assuming that's how it'll be won. But
You
never know.
You think you're going to have to run very far?
I'm gonna try and run as far as I possibly can, because here's the deal: where you've got 240 boats going out of one ramp, and there's so many creeks on that upper end of the lake, like Fishing Creek, White Oak, Fawbush, Cub Creek, all those areas like that are just going to be covered in boats, especially the way Cumberland works in the spring is when the water fluctuate up so much like it does, all the floaters and logs and trees and all that stuff, they get out in the lake, and that makes it really hard to run around. So that's going to kind of discourage people from making huge runs and all that stuff. But if at all possible, and if it's safe to, we're gonna make a decent little run down. We're not going to run to the dam or nothing crazy like that. But we're going to try and get away from a few boats and just try and find the most unpressured
But
fish
this
that we
being a
can.
high school term, you have to have a marshal or whatever we do.
Yeah, I'll have to have my boat
chaperone or
yeah.
boat captain or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, you got to have a boat captain where it's a high school tournament. Dad's always my boat captain. Me and him, my partner Joseph, we're going to be down there and just plugging away, trying to catch a few. It should be a fun tournament. Not to put any just a guess on what I think it'll take. See, the way they do it is this tournament right here qualifies you for the national championship, which is on Lake Hartwell in South Carolina, and that's in June. And that's just like the Mac Daddy, the Bassmaster Classic, I guess. Of,
how many places?
Of high school
how many
fishing.
places get to qualify for that?
That's what I was getting to. So if we have say like the other day when we signed up, we have 240 boats. What they do is they take the top 10% of the field. So then out of that 240 boats, 24 of those, the top 24 will qualify and go to nationals. So if you have 280, then 228 boats will qualify. So they just run it on that basis.
What do you think the cut line will be?
The way it's been fishing, it's been tough, but I think it's going to get a lot better. It's going to get better every single day this week. I'm thinking if I can catch somewhere around 12 pounds, I'll be sitting pretty good. If I can get around 12 pounds, I think I'll make the cut. But if I'm wanting to make a shot at winning it, I think I'll have to have 16, 17, somewhere in that ballpark. And I mean that's very doable down there. It's a really good fishery in the spring. It had an off winter. It was tough all winter, but the springtime's a different deal.
Is it going to be a smallmouth, largemouth bite combination?
It'll be a combination. I really think it will be. The only thing is with the smallmouth down there, it's an 18-inch limit.
Oh yeah.
And usually this is one of the first times I've seen that they don't give us a 12-inch limit on that tournament. Like normally you have a 12-inch limit on across the board. 12 on largemouth, smallmouth, and spots.
Right.
But this year they're doing the same limits they always do in every other, which is just the lake limits: 15 on largemouth, 12 on spots, and then 18 on smallmouth. So if I'm not saying I might not go and try and find a few smallmouth. I probably will, just because I like fishing for them, and I know if I can find them, that's a really good way to consistently catch them. Because the way the smallmouth work down there, if I find a group of good ones, there's going to be it's a group of good ones. They run in packs of around the same size.
Like if you catch one
there.
or two 3-pounders, then there's going to be more 3-pounders there. But
Right.
if you're catching a bunch of 1-pounders, then that's just all going to be 1
That's
pounder.
that's about how it works down there. Yeah, it's going to be a fun event though. I'm going to try and ride the momentum into this one.
Now you don't cash a check in this one, do you?
Don't cash a check in this one.
Scholarship money?
There is a little bit of scholarship money up for grabs. I think.
But it's more the thing of just a notch on your belt and a shot at going to the national championship. That kind of thing.
Pretty much just a bragging rights deal with my buddies. You know,
Yeah.
we're going to be down there. We're going to do the same thing. I'm going to be rooming with a bunch of my buddies that I fish against, that I even fish with on the BFLs. You know, Bailey and all them. I'll be rooming with them. So we're just going to run around and hopefully find a few and
You
fish for
said
bragging rights.
this was TBF. Who I guess is the parent of that?
It's
that through-
MLF, yeah.
Is that through MLF?
MLF,
Okay.
FLW, whatever you want to call it.
Does Bassmaster put on any of this kind of stuff?
They do.
Okay.
Bassmaster has a high school trail. They actually have a Bassmaster High School Open, the Mossy Oak Series. It's going to be there in May.
Mm-hmm.
So that's always another. It's going to be another tournament around that same size. You know, it's Bassmaster High School is a big organization,
Yeah.
so it'll be another. You know,
Are you gonna
probably
try to
200.
fish it?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
awesome.
I'll be there.
Awesome. Good
Yep,
deal.
yep. That one, and that one's May 2nd, and then the next weekend I got a BFL on Cumberland, so it's gonna be busy this spring for sure.
All right. Well, folks, I think that's about everything we've got for today. Evan, you got any other thing to update us on? Anything
No.
like that?
Not
All
that
right.
I can think of.
Well, folks, one thing we've been meaning to do with our podcast here, through our statistics, where I use the Podbean platform, we can see where our downloads are. And whoever you are in Great Britain that has listened to practically every episode we've put out, we thank you. And if you would message us or something and just let us know who and where you are, we'll put together some kind of a swag bag and send you just for being a loyal listener, because we do appreciate you and we appreciate everyone that tunes in here. And just stay tuned, folks. We've got an interview coming up here pretty soon with muskie hunter Greg Thomas, a top-level PMTT angler and everything. So we've got him on the books to be interviewed, I think, Thursday evening. So we'll be putting that one out pretty soon. And then we've got some interviews scheduled with some personnel from the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife. So just stay tuned, folks. We've got a lot of good stuff coming up here. And as we always say, just get outdoors with Hook Outdoors.